Good evening. Well, good evening to listeners.
Good evening to you. Even before Atufosin presents his budget to Parliament, he's been given this Herculean task by the president: find money, fix the issue, solve the problem. Where are we going to get that money from?
Well, I think the first thing is that the amount, 150 million, that's been put out. Well, at current exchange rate, that's just about 2.2 billion Ghana cedis, 2.3 billion thereabout. Now, if you look at what we are projecting to collect in revenues in 2025, it's about 208 billion. Or what we are projecting to spend in 2025 is about 241. So in that context, in the broader scheme of things, it looks like a small amount. That, finding some readjustment here and there, you should be able to find it. In particular, if you consider that this is presumably a leaner government, at least based on the number of ministers we've seen alone. That's a leaner government. So you should be able to make the 2.3 billion or so savings to take it up. But I think that amount that was put out in the statement only reflects a portion of the support that the USA had given to the government. That's probably the government-to-government part. There are other forms of funding that doesn't go through government, that go through other agencies. That will probably be more than that. And when those fundings are withdrawn, it means that the slack has been picked up by government. And then when you look at that, suddenly it becomes a bigger amount. So, in terms of what we can do, well, if we even saved a small portion from the gold border has been set up, even the amount of gold that gets smuggled out of this country, if we save only a tiny fraction, we should be able to cover this up. But I think the bigger conversation and the bigger picture is how we should interpret actions like this in the longer term. Because when people are giving us aid, yes, we are receiving, but aid always is strategic. It's in the strategic interest of the giver. That is why they give the aid. So if you build a country where you are extremely dependent on aid, you should know that, like has happened, somebody can suddenly wake up one day and say the aid is not coming. Like exactly what has happened. I'm sure the impact is already being felt, especially in the places where the USAID is responsible for providing supplies and specific commodities and medications and other things. That impact is being felt. So the broader thing that I think we should focus on is what this means for us in terms of our long-term strategy going forward. We missed a chance during the COVID to learn this lesson. You recall that during the COVID, at the time when the vaccine started flowing, the countries that had the vaccine decided to hoard them and decided that until they are done satisfying themselves, they're not going to release the vaccine, even including some developing countries. That should have told us that there are some things that we cannot depend on others to finance. The president did mention about 78 or so million dollars that is coming from, that's going to the health. There are critical commodities that are funded by donors. And I think going forward, we need to begin to think about what we have to do and what we want to depend on foreign aid for. I think for me, that's a bigger question. But in terms of the quantum of the monies we are talking about, I think it shouldn't be too difficult to find.
You make it sound like it's easy to plug the loophole, but you also do know that the money we'll be using to plug that loophole, that lacuna that is going to be created, would have been voted for other projects or would have been planned for something else. So either way, something got to give.
Oh, absolutely. When I say that, in percentage terms, it's small and we can find it, obviously something has to give. We have to decide what matters to us and what doesn't matter to us. I think, the conversation, the item we just played gives us an idea that there's a lot of inefficiencies in our public expenditure, and there are also a lot of revenue to be collected. So, in principle, it is not a difficult thing. However, plugging loopholes or collecting uncollected revenues take time to collect. You need to make institutional reforms. You need to make adjustments. I think that is where, when the cut is sudden, as this one is, it becomes even more painful to make the adjustment. Don't forget that this is also a government that has just come to power, trying to put the team together. Like you said, the first budget has not even been read. So when you immediately when you immediately have to find this, I think even the psychology of finding where to cut and where not to cut is even more painful. So I think it's the suddenness more than anything. But in terms of even if you think about the savings, the president has announced that he doesn't want his ministers to travel first class or second or business class. That will bring some savings. If you cut the ministers, that will bring some savings. But those things will take a little bit of time to materialize. So within the amount that was approved for the first quarter, I think finding some money within that to solve the immediate challenge, I think that's what's the bigger challenge. But in terms of the broader scheme of things, finding 2.2 or 2.3 billion is not necessarily the biggest challenge.
Very well. Thank you so much. We'll wait to see what exactly the minister will do. But thank you for the views.
You're welcome.
That's Patrick Asuming. He's economist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 CTF. We'll be returning with business news shortly. Please don't go away.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.